Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today we'll be discussing my nightlife experience as a performer and as an event producer, and how that impacts the guidance that I provide to business owners who operate venues or spaces that invite collaboration within the community. Now, before we dive in, please make sure you visit marinamars.com and add your name and email address to our mailing list. This is where you'll start to receive more news, recipes, courses, workshops, industry happenings, and more. So, backstory time. I started dancing when I was 5, as in that's when I started taking classes, but I always was a fidgety little girl who just loved to move. I became a dance instructor when I was 19, and that happened in Madison, Wisconsin at a pole dancing studio called Miss Pole. I ended up becoming a professional dancer by the time I was 21, which means I started making money doing what I loved, and I had a great time doing it. Very shortly after I started performing, I started producing shows as well. Very natural thing that ended up happening because of two things. Number one, it's Wisconsin. There wasn't a lot of opportunity at the time. The Wisconsin Burlesque Association was founded, shortly after I had started performing and producing. There was also all of these students that I was teaching at Miss Pole who wanted to perform as well. So it only made sense to help them bridge that gap. So regardless of being in Wisconsin, we had a great time, and, we actually learned not only how to have a great time, but how to make it successful. And by successful, I mean we made the bar money and we made ourselves money, and we were able to have a really great payout. So basically, there was one bar that I worked at called the Nomad at the time, and I had a show called Sunday Bum Day Burlesque Review, and I co-produced it with Mama No Shits, total badass, and we did a free show. It was a free show on a Sunday at 7 p.m., but we were able to pay our performers out anywhere from $75 to $100 per act, which was the highest rate in the area at the time. And we were able to do so because we had a really cool structure. We had a mid-show auction following intermission to get people really involved and get people back into their seats. During this auction, we had a lot of different businesses around the community donate things. So not only was it brand awareness for them and an act of giving back to the community, but for us, it was a way to pay our performers. And we had a really good time doing so. And we also did a shared tip jar that was pooled throughout the entire show. We even had volunteers who would walk around the entire time and, helped out the performers. And those were usually the beginner students who just wanted to start to get exposure to understand what was going on and how the world worked. So it was a really awesome ecosystem that was created, and it was beautiful. And it was never something that we intended to do to make money at first. It was just something we wanted to do. The abundance just came with time. Shortly after all of that was happening, I published a coffee table book with another amazing collaborative team of pole dancers, and that one was called the Chrome Chronicles. That was super fun, and that was basically a coffee table book collection of. We wanted it to feel like a yearbook of pole dancers in the Midwest at the time, and so we all just put our photos in with our names and just a quote that resonated with us that reminded us of why we are pole dancers. And so it's just this beautiful collection of beautiful photos, of course, but it also meant something to everyone. And we distributed that at a pole competition, and everyone signed it with metallic markers, so it turned into feeling like a yearbook, but also we all made this hardcover beautiful book together. So not exactly event production, but other things I did. But then when I was 24, I moved to Vegas, and I started really competing a lot, but I also produced shows with members of Cirque Du Soleil. I was also producing shows across the country in Chicago that also included live bands in some pretty well-known venues. And around that time, I was traveling at least 21 times a year. I think I had I was averaging. So pretty crazy times. And then by the time the pandemic hit, I was 27. And that's when I founded my first online coaching business, which is known as Functional Flow today. So that's the whole kind of backstory on what kind of crazy things I've done. There's plenty of gigs that I've had in crazy bars, different kinds of venues, some music videos, some artistic, I don't even know, just some art fairs, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of cool things that happened, but there was also a lot of learning that happened. And one thing that I wasn't super aware of at the time, because I always had multiple revenue streams. I had some gigs, but then I would also do some other random side hustles for people, and then I always had another job, and I was just busy. I had a lot of different interests and a lot of things I wanted to do, but by time I was getting a little bit older, and I was starting to see the amount of effort and the amount that you put into an art form. I was well, I'm always breaking even, on all my expenses, but I'm not, this is not something I could ever fully quit my day job. I would have to continue to coach or do other things. I could never just do that comfortably with the way that I wanted to without sacrificing, so for example, Cirque Du Soleil, yeah, they pay amazing, but you have to do the same act a million times a week and then a month, a year, and, it doesn't change up. I need freedom. I am very difficult to manage. I've been literally told that by multiple bosses. So point of the story is that means that I'm one of them grassroots, underground kind of performers. That's the way I like it. I like a dirty venue. I don't know. I'm not saying I like a dirty venue. What I'm saying is I like the roots. I like the things that they don't quite have their stuff together, but they have the best stage and they have the most open hearts and the most collaborative energy. Unfortunately, in those environments, there wasn't unless we were around to educate, there wasn't a lot of, base pay. So they would often also try to provide drink tickets because they'd feel bad. They'd be well, we can only guarantee 50 a performer, but hey, here's 2 drink tickets to make the burn a little bit less. And then we'd of course also get tips on top of that, which was always really nice. But you don't realize how quickly those 2 drink tickets turn into a lifestyle, especially when you're well, I need to feel like I earned something, so I'm going to get the best, cocktails on the menu. Whatever these drink tickets can get, I'm going to get the most beautiful thing because I'm wearing beautiful things and I want to feel like that's my lifestyle or something. I don't know. When you stop drinking, you really start to feel the sting of those drink tickets, because then what? You get a Red Bull, you get a ginger beer. I love ginger beer, don't get me wrong. But what is that? It's certainly not anything to write home about or something that makes you feel like you're a master of something. Side note, I remember being told as a kid that you become a master of something once you've been doing something for 10 years. And that's the whole joke. I'd been dancing since at least 5 and there I was. So it's a common story. It's very common. And again, the only way you make money is if you kind of you have to make your own path, or else if you want to make quick money, you don't get to have that creative freedom. It's not your art, So I took the hard path and wanted to do it my own way. And I vowed that I would never go back unless I could create or help build a zero-proof venue and figure out something from that point, see where I was at, if I was still into burlesque or if I was still into pole or any other type of dance or other type of art. Then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But all I knew is it was all ruined and dead to me for what it was. And, especially come April 2021, that's when I started working at my first kava bar. Though I had worked at a general tea bar throughout all of college, that was my first kava bar, and seeing that experience of a bar that did it right, a zero proof bar that nailed the nightlife experience, feeling good, everyone's vibing, it's a mature vibe. It's not, anything that made you feel like you were missing out on anything. Like that was the place. Like that changed everything for me, which leads us into the second half of, this entire episode here, which is what nightlife, entertainment, and the zero proof movement can have in common. Like, where is that intersection? So first, let's talk about the evolving preferences of customers, the demand for non-alcoholic options, and the role of entertainment in zero proof venues as it stands. So I was not the only sober performer. Like, once I did stop drinking, I started to realize how many people silently around me weren't. And many performers in Vegas are sober. I know that can be kind of surprising if you're like from the Midwest, like Farmtown, USA, and you go to Vegas, Sin City, and all you've done is seen the movies, and there's no point in going before you're 21, so you have no idea. Like, my first time going to Vegas wasn't like, most people, like, they go party and have like a good time or whatever. Like, my first Vegas trip was a business trip, like as a performer, like as the entertainment, which is super cool, but like really impossible to describe. I remember that night was one of the highest highs of my life. And then the very next night when I got home back to Wisconsin at the time, because I hadn't moved yet, I had the lowest low. I didn't really know, like it turned everything upside down for me. Most professional performers, like, this is what I learned over time, by the way, like as I moved to Vegas and started getting better gigs and meeting more people and seeing all the things, I found that most professional performers, like the ones with big contracts that, like pay for the house type of professional performers, they have to be sober in order to perform as long as they need to in order to make that dough. So it was incredibly inspiring, and it definitely led me to making better choices, if not for my health, at least for my career. But here's the thing. There was this old joke in the performance community that was like, drink more so I can look better. And I just, I find that nowadays to be incredibly tacky. And when I think about it, my best performances with the crowd, like the best interactions, the best feedback, like everyone's feeling good and having a good time, like those weren't like the drunkest crowds or anything. Like they were never the diviest of bars. I mean, of course, I'm not saying you can't have great performances at dive bars. I have, and those are great too. But what I'm saying is, like, the best of the best, like, that's not where they happen. Oftentimes, to get super real here, the drunk ones would grab me. They would invade my space. They'd objectify me, you name it. And usually, I always had a thick skin. You have to in that industry. And, as long as you find a way to get a tip out of it, you get some money on the other side of that objectification. Somehow, you just kind of brush it off your shoulders. But then one time, so after I got sober, I got invited to this like super dope after party in Vegas at the Bellagio. And I remember that I had to leave early with a panic attack because I was triggered. Even though no one did anything to me that day, like nothing happened at that super dope event, I had worked so many other countless events that put me in dark shadows, and those demons kept like cock blocking me from furthering my career. Like they legitimately made it impossible for me to network the way I needed to at this event. Like I'd made it to this awesome event. I was invited, like I was inside, like I was getting the coolest gigs, like magic was happening. And then I'd get these panic attacks, and I couldn't figure out really what the cause of it all was until I had a little bit of distance and perspective. And the fact is, the presence of alcohol did not accelerate my growth, but it definitely inhibited it. Now, if we want to talk about like opportunities and the challenges of incorporating zero proof offerings into nightlife experiences, there's so many different directions we can take this. So we can be better humans just overall if we offered more enticing zero proof options to the nightlife space. Period. Like, it doesn't need to be a big thing to make a big impact. Like, literally, like, just offering, even if you have a whole menu that has 100 cocktails, I mean, just like have 5 mocktails. Like, You have no idea how big of a difference that would make. But of course, take that to the extreme, you know, somewhere in the middle, you've got a kava bar, which is awesome, but you can take it to extreme. My life's mission, honestly, is to help kava bars expand, starting within Sin City itself, starting in Vegas. You know, Vegas was my dream ever since I was a kid. And, you know, even when I left Vegas for a bit, moved to the Phoenix area, and then moved back, like, that luster and that love for this city, like, never disappeared. Like, I love it so much. Even without the alcohol, like, it still presents so much magic and more opportunity. Like, it's the most magnetic city I've ever been in. Like, I love it so much. So I want to start here, but my husband and I will not stop until we've helped shift culture. Like, we've made a difference, right? Like, not just a culture of drinking, not just the culture of performer pay, not just the culture of how venues collaborate with the community, but in all facets of society. Obviously also including the ones mentioned, especially so since that's where some expertise of ours lies. The shadows of what happened with drinking and drugs affect all of us, no matter what your socioeconomic background is. So, you know, again, small differences can make a big impact. And I'm not here, and I would never be here to say outlaw alcohol. That is not my belief system. I'm not even here to shut down that business. Like, I'm not here to tear it down, nothing. Like, there's a time and a place for people in certain parts of their lives where that is a thing, and it is what it is, right? That's just not where I'm at. That's not where, you know, where I'm vibing, or where the people who are vibing with me are vibing. So it's just not the focus point. But I'm just here to say that I'd like another option. And I'm sure plenty of other performers feel the same way. And I'm sure plenty of other patrons feel the same way. Like I said, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to run away with the circus, see the world, wear beautiful feathers and rhinestones. And I was devastated when that fell apart in 2020. But now I see why it did. Like, the vision is so much clearer now. Bringing a sober circus to Vegas is in sight, and I will not stop until it happens. So we don't just need kava bars, though that will totally help, and that is exactly what we're here to help as many people do as they want. Please reach out if that is a goal of yours, because we can absolutely help. It's just that in general, we need more third places and more entertainment venues that aren't all about escapism or bottomless consumerism. And here's the thing, I keep mentioning this, like, it doesn't have to be an all day, every day sober place either. Like, just give some space on the menu, or give us a night every so often. Look, I get it. Alcohol sales are incredibly easy in the sense that once someone has one drink, it's very easy to convince them to have another and to upsell them and to have large tabs. It's a very easy way to make money in some ways, right? But I know it's not always easier to make money in other ways, but it sure is more delightful and rewarding, in my opinion, which is why I'm here, and why I'm sure many of you are here. There are a lot of different ways to make money that if you just take a second to stop being so scarce, like, you'll be able to see. So, for example, every single truly successful person I know, I'm not just saying like, oh, they have a career. I'm saying the people I know whose net worth is like well over $1 million. We're talking like tens of millions, hundreds of millions. All the people I know who fall in that category, they have faith. And I'm not just saying in God, although of course that is a very, very apparent trend as well, of course, but a faith in what that means, right? Like, so what does it mean to have faith in God? It's like, what does it mean to have faith in the universe? What does it mean to have faith in the process? You know, it means that you don't understand or even need to understand the details of how it works, but you understand that if you are genuinely a good person trying to make an impact and are self-aware and are at least, you know, aware enough to be able to see when there are little blockages so that you can ask for help and build a team to make something really cool happen. Like, You've no idea. Like, you can literally make millions of dollars without alcohol. Like, you don't need to. And if that's the industry you're going into, just all I'm trying to say here is ask yourself a couple questions. If you're trying to look for a community space where we can all sit back and relax, cool, that's one thing. And you have like low prices and you're like, look, I'm just old school. I like kicking it with my buddies, drinking beer. That's what we do. Like, I'm not here to like, tip the scales here, but because, you're doing you. But the people who genuinely want to make a difference, or any business owner there who's genuinely just wanting to make money, I'm letting you know right now that alcohol can only get you so far if like you don't have great intentions going on, because something is going to happen. There will be a drunk person. If you're not caring, then your business won't be in the culture of caring. So then that means you're going to have careless drunks, and careless drunks can bring lawsuits. So if you need a reason to not, I can give you so many. But when it comes to, okay, so how do we make up those sales in the event space? Because I know for a fact, like, for example, I love dealing with Cirque du Soleil examples because they're very professional, well put together, international company that makes money and has a structure for their performers that pays and all that stuff. So if we take a look at what they're doing, we see that, of course, they have higher ticket prices for the events. So by the way, if you're ever like, holy shit, it's over $100 per ticket, like, I'm letting you know it's worth it. Like, you will laugh, you will cry, you will be inspired. It's totally worth it. So like, totally worth it. But the casinos, like, they make the money on gambling, right? So that's why, there are so many great deals that can happen with ticket packages sometimes, but also they know if they feed people free entertainment, free alcohol, free food, then you're more likely to gamble more and be a little bit like more loose with your wallet. So then, that's where they get all their money. That's why it's easy for them to give out alcohol for free. So if you're charging for something that other people give away for free to make sales, that should tell you something. So a point of all of this is, when it comes to what we can do instead of alcohol to make money, is let's think about the pain points and ease them. So if someone is coming in and they're drinking alcohol, it's because they want to, maybe there's escapism there, maybe there's a pain point, maybe they literally have physical pain, maybe they're just a little socially anxious. Okay, well, let's take some of those pain points and see if we can solve those pain points more effectively and help our people even more. So we're not giving them another problem. We're not giving them liver failure from a life of alcohol. Now we're giving them other drinks that make them feel better in multiple ways. Now they're going to want to show up because you take care of them. That's different than just being a bar. You take care of them. You are someone who genuinely has their back. They're going to have your back. You're going to have a legit community within your business, and so many more collaborative, amazing things can happen. You have more space for brilliant, creative ideas coming forward, and with those innovations, that's how you can make your millions. Like, absolutely, because once you hit that point of abundance and you genuinely care that much, and impact is something that's happening in the forefront of your mind, profit is a natural side effect. Like, truly, like, I'm not saying these things just because, there's a lot of wealth gurus out there that say it. I'm saying it because I have experienced it myself, in terms of the moment I let go of certain details and I just focus on the operations that I do have control over, but I allow space for flow of creativity and feedback based on customer experience, as well as venue partner experience. So our vendors matter. The experience they have with us, even though they're selling to us, that matters. Performers, maybe we have artists who put paintings on our walls, or maybe you have a chalkboard artist that comes in and updates that. All of that matters. And all of these different things, you're creating an ecosystem where, at first you may not understand how it becomes profitable, but if you just give it the space and you understand and you stay focused on the goal, the impact that you're trying to have, and you have operations that are very goal oriented, there's no way you can't make money. And I believe that if you're worried, if you're like, look, I have an alcohol bar and I'm here because like I'm trying to figure out what to do, or I'm just sober curious and I'm just trying to learn something, like it's just something to think about. Like all of human history, we've been drinking all this alcohol, and at first it was because we literally had no other option, because like normal water would make us sick and die, because back in the day you could die from diarrhea, and you can still die from that today, right? So alcohol was originally one of the cleanest things we had, which just spoke to where we were at in human history, but nowadays we're not there. It's an old habit that we've held on to. And, with the amount of with globalization, we get to learn more about different botanicals, even though all of our ecosystems around us in our natural areas do have a lot of really cool things. Of course, it's fun to learn about what the world has. And when you see what the world has to offer, you're like, really? Like, really, guys, you're stuck on alcohol when there's so many other cool things out there where not only you're serving them a drink, but you're serving them an experience, because you're telling them, I got this from Fiji. Like, I got this from Vanuatu. Do you want to learn more about, what this herb means and how it helps people, and it's such a cool story, and automatically now you have this cool experience that you had because you sat down at, for example, a kava bar, and you're learning about where that kava was from. And now when someone, you're at another party and you're like, damn, I don't really want to drink alcohol, but someone's like, oh yeah, so what would you drink? And you'd be like, oh hey, have you ever heard of kava? And now you have this cool story because you learn about where it's from, because it's a weird thing that we all want to learn about because it's not in the common social zeitgeist at the moment. So, there's so many benefits. And I bring all of this up because I feel like the biggest reason I didn't want to go back to performing in the way that I was, it all came down to realizing that my art was being used to sell something that wasn't in alignment with my goals of helping people. At the time, my tagline was all about love, beauty, and pleasure. So it wasn't in alignment with that goal, and it certainly isn't in alignment with my goal of providing more flow and ease in people's lives. So, something to just consider as we all become a little bit more self-aware here, how we can take care of our people, our community, our artists, our performers. I know sometimes it's easy to look at artists and be like, oh, those silly artists, they don't know anything about operations. They're just crazy geniuses at their art, but they don't know how to, how a spreadsheet works. Well, let me tell you, a lot of them do, and even the ones that don't, they reach out to others that do, and they all help each other because they're nice friends and they're people that, know how to collaborate, because that's the way of the artist a lot of times. So, point of the story is, have conversations with, if you're a business owner or an operator or manager of any kind, just have conversation with your community and give them, first and foremost, give them the space to give you feedback, but then on top of that, ask them for clarification. Oh, can you give me more information on that? How would you solve this problem? You would be surprised. People come up with great ideas all the time. It's just that a million people do not know how to execute it. And that's totally normal. It's you can be super brilliant and have a really hard time executing things if you don't have systems. And this leads me to my main point of this entire episode, that all of the experience that I kind of just vomited onto you here leads me to want to reshape the way that the nightlife and entertainment industry views the beverage choices that are being provided for a variety of, types of events and experiences. And because I've been in such a variety of bars and experiences and nightlife venues and circuses and art installations and weird things all over the United States, and I've worked in the, kava industry, the zero proof industry, the general service industry, that's my whole life career right here. All of this leads me to say there is a better way. And what we are doing is not going to work long term. And it's not what people want nowadays, and it's trending towards more and more zero proof. I mean, the proof is in the numbers. There's so much market research that just states over and over again, like, this market is booming and it's not going anywhere, and it's not just a trendy moment, but it's like a lifestyle choice. It's an entire movement away from the medical system that we're currently in, on top of the entertainment system that we're currently in. All of it. And I am here to help anybody who needs help making that adjustment, bridging that gap, whether it's you have operations that you're just like, look, I'm on board with everything you're saying, I just have no idea how to actually execute that. Let me know. Send me a message, because I have a whole program for that. If you're having a hard time understanding just like how to structure events to make it work, or maybe you're like, okay, I'm game, but like, how do I make my menu make sense? Like, how do I advertise these things? What are the cool herbs? What herbs can you mix with alcohol, and what shouldn't you, just in case if you have someone who's dallying around and trying everything on your menu? Like, those are all the big scary questions that come up when I present this, because of course, if I was to say, hey, do you want to make more money and help your community feel better so they want to keep coming back to you, and you know, you're making millions and you're having a great life, of course everyone should, I would imagine, say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It's a great way to live life. So let's do it. Let me help you. I got you. If any of this describes your business, a business you work for, or a business you frequent, I would really love to hear more about it. If you have any thoughts on nightlife industry or anything else that was brought up in this episode, please tell me about it. Head on over to my Instagram, Mocktails with Marina, find the post on this episode, and leave a comment. If you want to keep it between us, that's cool too. You can send me an email or a DM on Instagram, and I'd love to hear all about it. Now, our next episode, I am so excited to present to you. We actually have a guest. Dun, 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 dun. Who will it be? You might know if you follow me on the gram. If not, stay tuned for a surprise. We're going to learn a little bit about one of my favorite brands in the space. And, you know, we're just going to dive deep. And, you know, if there's anything that comes up, I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. If there's anything you want to hear about or any brands you'd like me to interview, let me know. Just send me an email. Once again, hello@marinamars.com, and I got you. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, please let me know if you need anything.